All right, let's jump to the next session. After we're focusing about the condition of our heart, it's also important for us to focus in a strong spiritual foundation. Below this ground is dirt and sand. Sure, but there's something that's more important than just that. There's a concrete foundation. Okay? Any building or structure needs to have a concrete foundation. The bigger the building, the stronger, the deeper the foundation, the more concrete, so on and so forth. As much as that's true in construction, that's a divine biblical principle. We're talking about McDonald's, hamburgers, and it's already past lunch. Here's Ray Kroc. He didn't found McDonald's, he bought out the franchise from the McDonald's brothers, one of the, what's they call it in business terms? One of the unwise, tragic business sales ever occurred in the kind of history of business, because they sold 10 pennies to the dollar, but Ray Kroc turned into a multi-billion-dollar industry. So this is what Ray Kroc said. I like this. As long as you are green, you keep on growing. As soon as you turn right, then you start to rot away. Interesting. Him being in the food business, kind of used an illustration. So, how can we translate it into a spiritual term? Be always spiritually green in a sense. In other words, always position yourself to grow, to grow. Don't say, I am right, I know it all, I understand it all, I'm not sure what I'm doing here, why I'm listening to Stan, and so on and so forth. Like that old friend of mine I haven't seen in 20 years, we just saw each other, he's like, I don't go to churches, they're false, they got nothing to teach me. Okay. He's right in his own eyes. And right before me, I'm just seeing a person that's spiritually decaying. So let us not make the mistake. So we all need a strong spiritual foundation. What does that mean? That means we need to know God's will and purpose for our life. That's one of the ways we have a strong foundation. And in Romans we read, and do not be conformed to this world, which, again, repetition, is why we're repeating some verses, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is a good, acceptable, and perfect will of God for your life. Does God have a will for your life? Yes, He does. Is it an okay will, or is it just a great, perfect will for your life? It's a great will for your life. Just as much as we as parents, we desire, I'm not going to read the last Bible passage, we desire the best for our children. Same thing here. God, our loving Father, He has a will and a purpose for our life. But we need to make sure that it's built on the proper foundation, which obviously we know is His Son, Jesus Christ. So I want to pause here for a moment with this illustration. You guys probably cover this in science or biology class in school. I'm not sure which class teaches these things. Okay? I want to use a tree as an illustration to challenge us to evaluate our life so we can see how strong and healthy are my spiritual roots. We understand that if the tree is well rooted and grounded in the ground, does not matter what storm comes. Maybe a few branches will fall off leaves, but the tree is going to go standing. But if the roots are not deep enough or they're unhealthy, then whatever storm comes and it's going to destroy it. So this is what we can learn from this illustration. In the left side, we see the roots that are go down. In here, we see a tree that's cut and there's rings and circles. And what they taught us was that each ring and circle signifies a year. Okay? It signifies a lifespan. So let's do just a little bit of a crash course, which will give us an understanding of how we can analyze our own spiritual roots. Every tree has the rings and they signify its age. Each ring or circle represents a level of your spiritual growth and maturity. Okay? We understand that the more rings or circles a tree has, the older it is. And obviously it's bigger and wider in some cases. So again, we're using a spiritual analogy here. Also, each ring or circle represents a measure of spiritual growth and maturity within that specific year. Okay? They're also somehow able to look at specific rings and how they're shaped, or sometimes there's some markings in there. I remember studying this years ago, and they'll be able to say, oh, in this particular year there was like a big storm, whatever, and this tree actually endured it because the way it was, being shaken. It's interesting. They have like a whole teaching of that. I don't want to lose track on that. I'm just trying to use an analogy. Also, the taller or the bigger the tree, the deeper the roots need to be. In other words, the more spiritual growth you desire, the deeper or stronger it needs to be your spiritual foundation in Jesus and His Word. The devil, also symbolic to win, The storms of life are coming at you. Because I am rooted and grounded in Christ, I might be shaken, but I'm not knocked down. Okay? That's why it's very important for us. And here in Colossians, we're reminded with these words. As you therefore have received Christ Jesus the Lord, so walk in him, and watch this, rooted and built up in him and established in the faith, as you have been taught, abounding in it with thanksgiving. So we're being challenged by Apostle Paul that we need to not only walk in him, we need to be rooted in him. For as long as our life is rooted in him, whatever problems and storms will come, we'll be able to properly endure them. Let's take this thought a little bit further. Take a look at these images. It's on my bucket list to visit California and to see the redwoods, as they call them. They're also called the giant sequoias. It's, look at that, an SUV. Yeah. Driving through it. And that's not the largest one. Okay? Or this looks like a 12-year-old boy standing. Obviously, the picture is much more taller. So, here are just a couple quick thoughts to learn about one of the largest trees and one of the smallest trees and how we can apply this Stanford parable in spiritual terms. For an example, the giant sequoia tree. Giant sequoia trees can grow as tall as 30 stories. They can be up to 80 feet in circumference. Circumference means 82 feet. If you were to measure around, 82 feet. Their average lifespan is almost 900 years. And the oldest ever recorded sequoia is 3,500 years. When was Jesus born, according to our earthly calendar? A little over 2,000 years ago. So this tree was on this earth before Jesus came to this world, based on the one that they were able to date and count the circles. Awesome. The weight of these trees can be around 2,700 tons. Now they're protected. You can cut them down, even though you can make a lot of money from that. I mean, try to cut it down and get this big thing out of the wood before they arrest you. It's not going to happen. Okay? So that's what's so interesting and magnificent about this tree. If I'm not mistaken, there's a car brand, I think made by Toyota, called the Sequoia. I mean, it's a big SUV. But then on the flip side, we have another tree called the dwarf willow tree. It's about 2 inches tall. Average lifespan is 30 years. That's the height of the tree, and that's someone's fingers. Have you ever heard of that tree? I have. It's called the tree. Okay? Both of these kind of reflect in a challenge for us. And the challenge is this. Do I want my spiritual growth to be like the dwarf willow tree? Or do I want it to be more like the giant sequoia? The choice is always ours. Okay? And obviously we understand for a tree of this size and magnitude, the roots need to go really deep to hold this thing up. Okay? That same thing here. Can we? So I guess the question is this. How much spiritual maturity is enough until you say, enough, Stan. I think I'm so spiritually mature, I just don't need to grow anymore. Does that even exist? No. And I think I might even have that somewhere in a quotation. Actually, I'm not going to say it because that's going to be one of the sessions. I'm going to spoil it for you. For as long as we have a heartbeat, we have the opportunity to grow. Okay? Sure, these trees have limitations because God has designed them a specific way. Okay, here's their lifespan, here's their width, height, and etc. But here's what we can learn from John, are these words. We already read this. Remaining in me, and I will remain in you. Just as no branch can bear fruit by itself without remaining in the vine, neither can you bear fruit, producing evidence of your faith, unless you remain in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. The one who remains in me, Jesus talking about himself, and I in him bears much fruit. For otherwise, apart from me, Jesus saying, that is cut off from the vital union with me, you can do nothing. Okay? So as long as, again, I use that tree as illustration. Let's take a giant sequoia. As long as this giant sequoia is staying properly rooted in the ground, it does not matter what comes its way, it's still going to endure it. And I think I might have even used this example in the character class, the session. What's so unique about this giant sequoia? I hope I'm not going to spoil it in the next session. Probably not. One of the facts about this tree. This tree needs fire. One of the worst things that can happen in the forest to any tree is fire. This tree embraces fire. When its bark receives fire, it regenerates, makes it stronger and healthier. Have you ever guys driven around in certain neighborhoods and you see the grass all burnt?
Right there.
Similar concept. It's one of the only trees that's not afraid of fire.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we're going to cover in that session a little bit later why trials and fire is very important. Okay. So God has designed this tree in such a way it's not afraid of fire. So same thing for us. That's going to be one of our lessons we're going to cover a little further. Okay. That we are going to endure fire.